Welcome to Box Out Banter, where we come hard and we come whenever we decide to.
Oh, God.
I'm Chris Okamura. Joining me as always, Mr. Jordan Christmas. How's it going, Jordan?
I am just going to move past that one because I know what you're talking about, and
it was honestly, and I think if anyone watched basketball over the weekend, that was like the takeaway from the weekend. And Doris Burke, I love Doris Burke, and we both love Doris Burke, but she has a couple of lines. Every couple of weeks, she has a line where you go, "Wait, what did you say?" And it's not like RJ. It's not like RJ where like Richard Jefferson when he says something, you're like he knows fully and aware of what he's saying.
Yep, yeah.
And he's memeing and he's making a joke. Doris Burke says stuff and you go, does she know?
Yeah. I'm just not gonna touch this one.
Too sticky for you?
Doris is a awesome color commentator, and yes, she probably could have worded that a bit better. But speaking of Richard Jefferson, pay that man all the money. By the way,
dude, he had a line.
Well, he probably makes a lot of money anyway because he does color commentary for the Yes Network and ESPN at the same time, and does Road Tripping on Uninterrupted. But Richard Jefferson's fantastic.
Absolutely, he's great. He had the line of he was talking about Dame Dollar.
Oh yeah, he's like, given that I am the black person in this pod, I should be the one to paraphrase this joke.
You paraphrase this joke.
But yeah, the Dame Dollar thing, and then Richard Jefferson just saying, "Always go with the A, never use the R." That was it was one of those like double takes. I was like, wait, what did he say? And then I just started dying laughing. And the funny part is it was Dave Pash. Yeah, it was Dave Pash who was doing the play-by-play with Richard. He just did not say anything. He just completely moved past it. What do you say? You cannot say anything, or else you will get roasted. And maybe that was one of those. You remember back in the Grantland days where Bill and Jalen had those "Don't Get Fired" segments with Jacoby, and stuff. That was for Richard Jefferson. That wasn't a "Don't Get Fired" moment. For Dave Pash, I imagine that was all right. I'm just don't get fired.
Yeah, I'm a piece out of this one.
Yeah, but no, give Richard Jefferson all of the money, because whenever I watch net games, I mean, they've already had good broadcast teams, but adding RJ to that team is just it's good to have him in basketball media. There's a few rising former NBA basketball media stars. So yes,
I would say Gilbert Arenas' podcast is another one of those to shout out.
Yeah,
we talk about that quite a bit, but I do want to say the great thing about LaMelo being really, really good and sort of showing out this year.
So we're getting the LaMelo quota out early on this podcast.
Yeah, well, the thing that I always kind of lean towards is like, hey, these Hornets commentators are amazing.
They're awesome. They really are. They're like that. I don't know who the play-by-play guy's name is, but he is just he's just awesome.
Dude, he's great. And the thing is, like, I would have never known, and I think most people would never known if like LaMelo highlights weren't everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, dude, these guys deserve a rate. These are some of the best like play-by-play calls I've ever heard.
Yeah,
and they're just like they're just like mundane kind of everyday highlights, but man, he makes them seem so hype.
Yeah, like the Hornets the Hornets play-by-play and the play-by-play team and the whole broadcast. It's one of those broadcasts too where it's like, okay, yeah, every broadcast team for their local team is going to be a little bit of a homer or whatever, right? But like they're objective in their analysis. They're engaging. They talk about. I don't want my broadcast to be serious all the time, but they talk about the game. They, whenever they do ramble, it's actually, funny and endearing. Like Del Curry is also just, I think all the Currys are awesome. So, and he does a great job color commentating. And then just the whole LaMelo and oh my goodness and all, just the way that I need to look up the Hornets play-by-play announcer name right now because it's slipping my mind. But Sam Farber, they're both incredible, and it's just it adds to the Hornets games, because I've watched a lot this year, and it's not just LaMelo and the rest of that team, but the play-by-play broadcasting just makes it really fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's Chris Kroger.
It's been a joy. Yeah, it's been a joy to watch Hornets games this year and see them kind of do their thing. And I'm so happy that they're getting the recognition now. And again, they deserved the recognition before, but I think that the thing now is now there's
Eric Collins. I messed up again.
This Hornets,
great podcasting.
There's Hornets highlights everywhere, and so yeah, it's great to see that going around. But I do have an off-topic question to start the show, Jordan. I do. So we got the Thinking Basketball episode today. I don't know if you've seen it yet. I
saw it earlier today. The LeBron James one.
Absolutely fantastic. Also, Ben Taylor, great work as always. Again, if you've listened to us enough and you haven't gone to listen to Thinking Basketball, what's wrong with you? We talk about this every week.
For real. The Greatest Peak series is amazing.
Absolutely. And so, watching LeBron James episode, I've always felt that Miami LeBron was peak LeBron. That's just something that I've always felt. And listening to D Wade and listening to a bunch of other people talk about it this year, what in your mind is peak LeBron?
So it is, for me, it is 2013 LeBron. To me, that's the best version of LeBron that I have seen. I think 2009 LeBron is also right up there, just because I haven't seen that combination of speed, size, and athleticism. I think Ben Taylor pointed it out in the video, but LeBron in Miami was a little bit bigger. His first step might not have been as quick, although he wasn't any less explosive. He was more explosive. But the 2012-2013 LeBron was ridiculous, and he averaged 26. He averaged almost 27 a game, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, and he shot 40% from 3 that year and almost 57% from the field. And there was the one stretch where he shot 6 straight games. He shot more than 60% from the field while averaging 30, and now broke a record. And not only that, he was in the argument for Defensive Player of the Year, probably should have won it. That was the year where really we realized analytics were taking over for basketball, even though there still isn't a great defensive stat that has been created yet. Marc Gasol ended up winning that one, but LeBron came in second, and he always jokes about how Marc has his trophy, as you know. But that season was just, it seemed like LeBron just mastered basketball, but I think his all-time great game was one that he lost, and that was game 1 of the 2018 NBA Finals. That was the best game I've ever seen LeBron play.
Was it the JR game?
Yeah, the JR game, which just goes to show you how bad that blunder was, because LeBron had 51, 8, and 8 on high efficiency in a damn NBA Finals game, and it was ruined by the fact that J.R. Smith could not remember the time and score in game 1. But and if you're talking about one peak all-time game, that was, to me, that was the best I've seen LeBron play. A whole season, 2012-2013 LeBron was a monster. So I think that's his peak for me.
Yeah, I think that, to me, the LeBron in Miami was just a freight train, and it's something physically I've never seen before. I've never seen someone dominate like that. Obviously we've seen Shaq, and we grew up around Shaq.
Yep.
And so we saw the dominant presence. I've never seen someone even Orlando Shaq, as mobile and as athletic as Orlando Shaq was. He wasn't. Miami LeBron was something different. Yeah, it was a different kind of monster. And the thing was, I think second stint Cleveland LeBron, to me, was the perfect mix of the athleticism with the intelligence and knowing when to pick your spots.
Yeah.
and where I just go like he is the perfect basketball player because like first in Cleveland, LeBron was the LeBron that couldn't shoot and the one that kind of just went full ham the entire time.
Yeah.
Miami LeBron was like, from tip, I'm going to come at you and just drive to the basket and just destroy you from tip.
I think LeBron said before, like, going to Miami was like going to a university, kind of, like learning, the ropes and all that.
Yeah, definitely. I think you could see that too. Like, as the first year Miami to the last year Miami, like, he was a completely different player.
Yep. Yeah, he absolutely was.
And so, and he took all of that to Cleveland, where then he took a step back and was like, okay, cool, let me let Kyrie cook, the idea of like him just being able to do all of that. And then I think even now too, like D-Wade brought up, I think on Gilbert Arenas' podcast, he brought up that now is best LeBron. And I think there's a lot of merit to that, of just saying like, because again, it's the thing of, like we saw it with Kobe, we saw it with Jordan, where then they get older, they lose the athleticism, but they gain the intelligence, right?
Yeah.
But like LeBron losing the athleticism just brings him down to like, he's not the best anymore. He's still like top, he's still like top 10, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like where you get the thing of like, okay, well, he's still like, LeBron has been probably the smartest player in the NBA and the most athletic player in the NBA for the past decade, which is insane to think about.
And I kind of get what D-Wade is saying too, because I remember last year I was saying that this version of LeBron is my favorite LeBron. Well, at least last year's LeBron. I don't know what it is, because like me and you were talking about earlier in the season, and this is a different topic for a different day, but like we clearly saw that LeBron was kind of coasting, but it seems like, and he's picked it up obviously, and I think he's back to the same level of defense he was last year, but it seems like we kind of forgot like the first 3 weeks of the season, month of the season, where we saw LeBron kind of coasting, but people seem to think that he wasn't, which confused me a little bit. But last season was my favorite LeBron season, just because he was trying to get on defense, even though he's usually put on the weaker assignment and has to defend the best player when he has to. He was like, all right, I'm going to decide to lead the league in assists. And we all thought, okay, maybe LeBron will transition into being a post player, like a Karl Malone type, but with passing. Nope. Point guard. Lead the league in assists for the first time in my career in year 17. And it was like a Clint Eastwood like style action movie where it was like he was showing all the young guns that he still was the top player in the league, even some MVP candidates, some MVP winners, and basically the whole league again when he won the championship. But last year's LeBron was awesome. That's like, I would say that's like the peak of LeBron's like mind, his basketball mind, because to be able to transition into, and he's been a point guard basically his whole career, but he had the ball in his hands a lot, and he was dictating a lot in the Lakers offense last year, even with Anthony Davis, and he led the league in assists. It was like that was what was impressive to me. So if you want to talk about like, if you want to separate the categories, like I would say IQ wise, this is probably LeBron's peak. I would probably say his peak athleticism was that 2009. Miami. No, I'd say 2009. I think the combination of his size, even though he's probably a little bit smaller, but his first step, his speed, and his athleticism. Do you remember the game?
The Pistons game?
No, not the Pistons game, but there was
the Pistons game.
It was a
Was
Cavs,
like
but no, it was. I was just talking about his athleticism. It was that Cavs Blazers game where LeBron didn't even finish the alley-oop, but he caught the ball
that's right,
almost at the top of the backboard. Like, that was insane. And wow, Malcolm Brogdon just dunked all over Joel Embiid. Sorry,
I just remember. No, I totally get it. I just remember sitting there during the Pistons game, and at the time, I don't know if you remember, right during that Pistons game was when LeBron was like, the conversation started coming of like, LeBron's coming for Kobe. LeBron's coming for Kobe's title for best in the league. And I remember as a Lakers fan, it was supposed to be a
Lakers-Cavs finals that year.
Yeah, and I remember going like, no, like Kobe's still the best player in the world. Like whatever, it doesn't matter. And then LeBron had that game against the playoff game against the Pistons where he literally carried them for in the entire fourth quarter and overtime, and I was like, oh my god, they can't stop him. And it's the Pistons at like the not the peak of their power, but it's the Pistons like still when they were a defensive juggernaut.
Yeah, they made it to like the Pistons made it to like 6 straight conference finals in that whole 2000s.
Yeah, and they were just dominant on defense.
Yep.
And like they couldn't stop LeBron at all.
Ben Wallace, Sheed, Tayshaun Prince, Rip, Chauncey.
Like, they threw everything at LeBron and he just did not give a shit.
I remember
and it was so impressive.
I remember I was going back and forth between my best friend who lived next door to me was having people over, and they weren't watching the game because they didn't like sports. And so I was running back and forth in between my house and his house and they were like, where's Jordan going? And I was just like, oh no. But also there was the catch where I wasn't allowed to watch TV on school days growing up, so I had to sneak a lot of basketball in my time growing up. So I had to like run up the stairs, make sure like nobody heard me, like close the door of my room so I could have so they wouldn't hear me turn the TV on. I had a whole operation going, but I was going back and forth like what, and then I stayed for like that whole, what was it, the last like 5 minutes of that fourth quarter, then the overtimes. Like I stayed over at my own house for like a long time, and my friend was like, dude, where are you? And I was just like, shit, go away, go back. Like I'll be back over. But no, the dunks, the shot making, the clutch shots, like this was when Skip Bayless was starting to, gain his reputation as a LeBron
hater.
But he just kept making bucket after bucket. Then, of course, we saw Skip do mental gymnastics like he always does with his takes. But and then I think and then the last category, the player, like skill-wise and all that stuff, I think Miami LeBron was at his best. But if you're talking about all three of those mixing together, that's why I would choose 2012-2013 as his peak.
Yeah, it's getting to the point where I'm not entirely sure. Like Miami LeBron to me has always been like, yeah, I've never seen anything like this, and it's absolutely insane. The thing now is like, even like Cavs, like second stint Cavs LeBron and Laker LeBron is just a level where I go, damn, he knows what to do now, and he knows like where he like. There's no wasted energy in anything he does, and it's also calculated. It reminds me of the '96 finals, the Jordan finals, where he's clearly exhausted, but he knows exactly what needs to get done and like when he can take a break and when he needs to do everything. And
are you talking about the '98 finals or the?
Oh yeah, no, '98 finals. Sorry, not the '98.
Yeah, you're talking about the end of his three-peat where he was clearly exhausted.
He was clearly exhausted.
Scotty had a broke back. Rodman was out, basically.
Yeah, and he is just exhausted. Yeah, and it's such a thing of like, he understands the situation and he understands like where to pick his spots, and LeBron can do that so well now. Yeah, and it's not just at the end of games; he's doing it throughout the entire game. Of like, okay, they don't need me right now; I'm gonna just chill. And like, it's so good to see him with someone like last year was great, and I totally get where you're coming from of like of him leading the league and playing point guard and all that stuff. But it was a kind of thing of like, I could see it sometimes take a toll over the course of the game where it's like, okay, he's a little too old to be doing this consistently, just stamina-wise. Where now with Schroeder, he has someone else to handle the ball and handle point guard duties, where LeBron can now fully take a chance. Like, all right, Dennis, give me the ball. Like, now it's my turn. And it unlocked, like, Schroeder, especially with Schroeder out, like, I think that's why the Lakers were skating so hard, was, like, with Schroeder out, it took that away, and LeBron had to go back to, like, he's not in playoff mode yet. Like I don't even think he's fully in shape. I think like we started to see the bubble and the short turnaround season play a toll. Yeah, over the course of those. Like, I think it's affecting a lot of teams. Yeah, but like with Schroeder back now, like LeBron can go back to like last night they looked absolutely fantastic. Obviously they're playing the Warriors, so it's a little easier. But they looked like, oh, LeBron looks like now he can pick his spots and he's fully in control again.
Yeah.
It's just terrifying to see him do this at age 36.
Yeah.
And the thing that's crazy,
36.
the thing that's crazy is like I can't imagine a world where LeBron is not a top 10 player in the next 5 years.
No, I can't either. Like
he could still keep going for
it's
another
like
5
the Tom
years.
Brady thing at this point. Like him and Tom Brady have defied how in their respective sports how their respective positions age.
Yeah, I think with Brady though, it's a little different because Brady's game was never predicated on like physicality or like predicated on any kind of thing where
No, it's
like,
not. But quarterbacks
Brady
usually
had,
fall off a cliff around age 40.
But I mean, like Brady had like Brady's entire game is based off short passing game and like the dink and dunk kind of stuff. Where like, dude, LeBron's still fucking throwing down alley oops and shit.
Well, no, not this year. Now that Brady finally had some weapons, like I think.
I mean, they were throwing a little bit deeper, but like in general, his game is based mostly on like short dink and dunk kind of stuff. Like that's the bread and butter, right?
Yeah, that is his reading coverages and getting the ball out quickly. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, but like, oh my god, dude, LeBron's still like driving the basket and bodying people up, and like he's still doing like the highly physical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, man, I cannot imagine a world where like even if he continues to decline physically, inch by inch, like in 5 years, he's still going to be a top 5-10 player in the world.
Yeah, no, I don't see any reason why either. But I wanted to talk about a certain team. I don't want this to be a whole LeBron pod, even though we could go on about LeBron.
We could,
but no, I wanted to talk about
that was an introductory question to get us into this pod because I felt like that was an interesting topic.
No, that wasn't. No, it is because I've had that conversation on my podcast a few times. But I wanted to talk about the Atlanta Hawks and
how nothing's working.
Yeah, and how the shocker expecting a 20-win team to all of a sudden leap into playoff contention is maybe somewhat unrealistic expectations. You literally have to have like a few lucky things break your way. But for the listener, the news came out today that the Hawks have fired Lloyd Pierce, the head coach of the Atlanta Hawks. Lloyd Pierce was a assistant coach under Brett Brown during the process, and then obviously through the first all the way basically through the first Jimmy Butler team, right around that time, and right before the Jimmy Butler team, but basically. Lloyd Pierce was hired to man a rebuild. They lost the Luka Doncic trade. They got Trae Young, who is a good player. I'm still trying to give myself a few years before I completely assess Trae Young's ceiling as a player, but I just find his game insufferable this year. It's weird.
Wow, complete flip.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it's a complete flip. I think Trae Young's a good player. He's a good passer.
Well, we had this discussion at the beginning of the year where I was like, I'm not that high on him, and you're like, I'm pretty high on him.
Well, I'm high on him as a high offensive player. My whole question has always been, like with everybody else, right? It's like, okay, can you build around the fact that your point guard is literally a sieve, and also his usage is out of control, and obviously, offenses with Trae Young having the ball the last few years has been good, but also defensively, it's horrid. And then this year, they're still trying to find themselves. But my point is, Lloyd Pierce was hired to oversee a rebuilding situation. Maybe they gave Trae Young too much too soon in terms of, complete control of the offense, especially because he became a player that nobody expected to be right away. And for some reason, a Hawks team that was last year, the 2019-2020 Hawks, was worse than the Hawks team the year before that, the first year Pierce took over. Then they make a few signings, and it's all based basically around Trae Young. And it's Danilo Gallinari. He's been in and out of the lineup. That's totally not unexpected from Gallinari considering his injury history. Then Bogdan Bogdanovic has been hurt for a lot of the year. And now, ever since DeAndre Hunter went down with his injury, the Hawks have really just fallen apart. My point is Lloyd Pierce did not get a fair shake in Atlanta. Yeah, I kind of figured they'd be in trouble this year the minute they hired Nate McMillan as their assistant coach, who was just let go from Indiana last season. That probably wasn't a good sign, but Lloyd Pierce was given a crappy situation. He was told to head something, and they completely changed course and expected a 20-win team to leap into, and even if it's the East, right, there are still a few teams that are above the Hawks in that tier, especially now that the year is bearing out the way it's been bearing out. Like, the Knicks are better. You still got the Heat, the Celtics, the Raptors. They're starting to figure stuff out, even though they had slow starts. The Hornets have gotten better. Like, the Hawks are now 11th. They are 2 games out of the 10th seed, which is the last seed for the play-in game. Trae Young's kind of still figuring out stuff. I think, there were some games where maybe he was thinking about the fact that teams and mainly his idol Steve Nash were calling out his bullshit foul drawing. And look, I am a James Harden guy, a stan even. And you're probably thinking, well, how can you be a James Harden stan and complain about Trae Young's foul drawing? I don't know. I guess because Harden is not only a foul drawer. Yes, he does grift. He does, call some BS fouls, but there is at least a mastery when Harden does it. Like when he has somebody on an island one-on-one and he drives by them and the guy has his hand in the cookie jar and Harden happens to swing his arms up for a layup and a foul like he did since his time in OKC. I'm like, okay, that's like a chess move type of foul draw I can admire.
Right.
I do hate when Harden does like the Chris Paul where they're running off a screen and the defender's chasing him and there's no way he could stop, and so Harden stops. That's the foul that Trae Young has been using a lot this year, and it has become it's smart, don't get me wrong, but it has become, as just from an aesthetic view, it's not fun to watch. And then also just look at his efficiency when Trae Young doesn't shoot all those free throws. Like, he's still a very inefficient player. So my thing is, why hire this coach and then change? When is the ownership and the front office going to hold themselves accountable and not fire? Because I'm afraid the same thing's going to happen to Steven Silas in Houston because ownership's cheap. And now there's another mark on black head coaches. So that's my rant for the end of this.
Yeah, I feel the same way. This is the same way I feel about David Fizdale, who I think is a fantastic coach.
Yep.
I think like he got the... and it comes down to the thing that's happening. Same thing happens in the NFL where teams just don't have patience. Teams and fan bases just don't have patience. And it's a thing of like, okay, this wasn't the plan. Obviously, Fizz was building something with RJ Barrett. He had a great relationship with RJ Barrett. They were playing young guys. I think that, given more time, I think Fizz could have did a great job with the Knicks, like Thibodeau's doing now. But I think just in general, not to get sidetracked on Fizz, but it's the same thing here.
No, it's in the same umbrella. Yeah,
where the plan changed, very obviously changed. They spent a ton of money that no one expected them to spend this year on like win now guys. Like Gallo was a guy that I think we said at the beginning of the year, like Gallo was a guy that I expected a championship contender to pick up, and like he's the perfect guy that, hey, he's not going to be around all regular season because he gets hurt every single year.
Yep.
But he's also going to be someone that's going to be around for the playoffs and is going to be a valuable contributor on a playoff run.
Mm-hmm. And he unlocks versatile lineups. That's his whole thing.
Absolutely. And I think, again, it goes down to a thing of, yeah, it's important that you have a championship contender have a guy. I don't know what he brings to a team like the Hawks, which is why that was such a confusing signing to me. Especially given the players they have, and you have young pieces like Cam Reddish who can probably fill that a similar role there, that you would want to build up and grow rather than spending a ton of money on Gallo. Mm-hmm. But like to me, it's a sad thing where teams get a shiny new piece and they go, hey, we can do a thing. It's like, no, you really can't.
Yeah.
And you're putting a lot of pressure on a young kid to take a step when you don't really know for sure if he can take that step.
Well, you're
And you don't
not
know-
just Trae Young, but a lot of young kids to take a step.
Yeah,
Like, there's a lot of young players on that team.
yeah. And you're asking, I just think you're asking them to do something that you're not necessarily sure that they can do.
Yeah.
And you're betting a lot on that, and the scapegoat obviously is on the coach. That's the easy scapegoat, right? Because you can't get out of these contracts. You can't. The easy thing is just to sack the coach, which is unfortunate. It's a terrible situation to be in. Like I thought for a while, like if the Nets thing didn't work out, like if suddenly the Nets imploded, like if the Harden thing didn't work out and it imploded, I thought Nash would have been the scapegoat for that too, right?
Yeah.
And so like he would have let that go. And I think like it's unfortunate that it keeps happening to like black coaches is seemingly put in this situation. And it's super.
Or they get passed over because Minnesota fired Ryan Saunders a few weeks ago, and that same night, somehow magically, they did a whole interview process. They searched 1,000 head coaching candidates, but that same night they hired Chris Finch from an active playoff team, the Toronto Raptors.
Yeah, I'm not.
They passed
necessarily
over
sure if that
David
should be allowed.
Vanderpool, who was right on the bench. Who has, David Vanderpool, by all accounts and reports, he's like one of those assistants that you hear a lot around the league, like the one of the hot candidates that to be the next head coach. Bless you. And
Thank you.
And David Vanderpool was one of those guys, had him on the bench, but nope, let's just bring in Chris Finch and hire a whole new staff. And by the way, in the same vein of holding front offices accountable, I don't want to blast Garrison Rosas yet because I think Morey disciples are always smart, and he's only like a season and change in so far. But goddamn, Glenn Taylor is such an awful owner. He is such an awful owner. When can people just look at Glenn Taylor and see that the constant in Minnesota through all the through the early KG years and failing KG, and then when KG leaves...
I was going to say, go ask KG how he feels about Glenn Taylor.
Yeah, go ask KG. KG literally cussed on Inside the NBA. He was just like, and you got an owner in Glenn Taylor who don't know shit about basketball, and he said it right there, hot mic, live TV, just right there. And there was an Athletic piece that came out yesterday too about how Ricky Rubio pretty much just said, "This is terrible. We're not even learning from the same. We're not even learning from the same mistakes we're making over and over again. It's basically it's not a fun environment right now." And the one constant there has been ownership. They have made it to the playoffs once since 2004. And that was when Tom Thibodeau and Jimmy Butler, people who care about, winning and building something, that was the only time they made the playoffs. And then, Tibbs gets fired, Jimmy gets traded, he has that infamous practice. Well, Jimmy got traded first, then Tibbs was to follow. But what's been the one constant there? Because they changed GMs. Garrison Rosas was hired before last season.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. And again, dysfunctional organizations. Like, they're just terrible. It comes from ownership. It comes from, again, I don't like turning everything into a race thing, because sometimes I think that's a little overblown in some scenarios. But like, this is like clearly,
yeah. Like,
he doesn't. It's clearly I don't want. It's not a Donald Sterling situation, but like it's like this. Clearly, there's a problem here.
Yeah, like it's a problem across all sports, and in these times too, when the NBA and the NFL, they're spouting messages about Black Lives Matter and all this stuff, like basically going along with the wave, and then all of a sudden they're just like, oh yeah, you guys forgot we're a corporation. Like, these messages are empty, but. Dude, like, just going back to the dysfunctional thing for a second, like, when is Karl Anthony Towns going to request a trade? Like, when is Bradley Beal going to request a trade? Because it is very clear, like, to me, it is very clear you could build a championship team around Karl Anthony Towns in the same way that I believe you can around Devin Booker. Like, these guys are not good stats, bad team guys. Like, I hate it when guys like Bill Simmons go at Karl Anthony Towns for being good stats, bad team guys. To me, they're like, a good stats, bad team guy is somebody like Andrew Wiggins.
Like
Hassan Whiteside and Andrew Wiggins. Those are some of the prominent examples where you put up empty calorie stats, and usually for perimeter scorers or offensive players, it comes with inefficient numbers. Booker and Karl Anthony Towns have been above average efficiency wise, even in bad situations. Like, Karl Anthony Towns is pretty much, he could be a 50-40-90 guy. That's how good this guy is offensively.
Yeah.
And so, by the way, every single year, I have been blown away by his progress as a passer. He is an incredible passer. Like, if I'm just seeing ways you could, to me, in my little mind or whatever, I'm seeing ways to build around Karl Anthony Towns, and a lot of the scenarios are not what Minnesota has right now. And Karl Anthony Towns, he eventually has to, think for himself. I know he's going through a lot right now, so that's probably the last thing he's thinking about. But eventually down the road, like, when are we going to realize that there's only been one constant in Minnesota?
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you on Towns, that talent-wise he is phenomenal, and I have no doubt that he could win somewhere. I think the only pushback that I have is everything that I've heard from people around Towns, and just kind of mindset-wise. And my thing, too, goes like, if you see everything that's going around you, like, Ricky Rubio's been there, a year? Not even a year?
Not even 25 games already?
Yeah, not even. And
it's his second time back in Minnesota.
Right, and he sees problems and he sees the issues. And the thing is, like, if you're the star and you're the leader and you're not voicing these issues, I have questions about, like, where your head's at. Like, are you okay doing just that? Like, I haven't heard Towns, any kind of discomfort from Towns of, like, the losing or anything like that. Like, I really haven't. He's just kind of going out there and playing. And it could be just his personality, and, like, I'm not going to judge him on that. But it does give me some pause of, like, okay, if my leader doesn't care, or my leader's not vocal about us losing, like, it does set a weird culture thing. And this is something that Jimmy Butler's brought up too.
Yeah.
But again, like, I don't talent wise, he is one of the most incredible offensive talents I've ever seen. He moves like a guard. He takes step back pull up threes, and he's like 7'2".
And like, and the crazy thing is, like, he gets, blasted for taking threes. And it's like, he shoots 44% from three, dude. Like, that is not to bring him up again, but like, Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo have their Sunday podcast back, right? And I remember they were talking about Towns, and they were saying, like, well, Karl Anthony Towns will just take his 3-pointers. And Bill Simmons was like, when can he realize, like, I'm bigger than everybody? I should just take a jump hook. And I'm like, he does that, but he also shoots, like, 42% from three. Like, what are we doing here? Like, I understand, boomers, their desire to have their thirst quenched with 10,000 post-ups a game. And I'm not even saying Karl Anthony Towns should shoot 12 threes a game. I think he should shoot a good amount of them. But when are we going to try to stop putting these skilled guys in a box? Like, Joel Embiid is shooting 40% from three this year, and all I hear Chuck and Shaq and all these old guys talk about is how he's posting up more and he's shooting less threes. He's taking the same amount of threes this year. Basically, like 0.3 less attempts from three. Like, it's not the threes that are the problem. It's not the threes Karl Anthony Towns is taking that's the problem. He could do everything on the court, but the guys around him, and yes, I do think in some ways, well, I don't even want to try to get in his head this year just because he's been through so much with the pandemic and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
But, like,
I'm giving him a pass this year.
After the Jimmy Butler year, I really do feel like he did take some, because he has, well, maybe it's generic, media scrum jargon, but he has talked about, like, not being happy in a losing situation, but he said recently he wants to stick it out in Minnesota, and I'm just like, that's the same comments Brad Beal is making about the Wizards, and I'm just like, guys, like, well, the Wizards, speaking of the Wizards, they've been resurgent, actually.
They've come out hot.
Yeah, they've been coming in hot for that play-in seed, the 10th seed, right behind the Hawks. But that was just I wanted to talk about these two teams because it's interesting how, like, do I think sometimes do I call for coaches to be fired if I don't like stuff that they're doing sometimes? Yes, I do. But I do think coaching does become overrated because at the end of the day, we always say that it's a players' league. We see all the player empowerment. We see teams building offenses around players, like heliocentric offenses like the Mavericks or the Rockets, etc. Like, I just don't understand. You know what? I forgot the point I was going to make. I had a good point, too. You know what? We should just move on and talk about... I wanted to talk about the 4th seed in Knicks because for podcasting flow purposes, I'm not going to try to sit here and remember what I was going to bring up for 5 minutes. But how about the Knicks, dude?
Yeah, Dude, Tibbs deserves a Coach of the Year vote for me. Like, I know a lot of people are going to give it to Dan Quinn or is it Dan Quinn in
no, it's
Utah?
Quinn Snyder.
Quinn Snyder, there you go. And who's Dan Quinn?
Falcons head coach.
That's right.
Falcons head coach Dan Quinn.
Yeah. So he's obviously
or ex-head coach, I should say.
Right. He's going to get the votes, obviously, and well deserved. But I think that Tibbs deserves some credit here for what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like, when you watch Knicks games, it's not just obviously they're playing better and, like, they're hitting shots and RJ Barrett's playing more efficient in stretches. I think he's still pretty inefficient overall, but I think he's playing better in stretches. Randall's obviously taking a huge leap here, and I think again it comes down to not just that they're playing harder, like all Tibbs teams do, right? Like they're not just playing harder, but schematically they are flying after the basketball. They're playing some great defense. They're hustling.
Yeah,
their offense is constantly in motion. They're getting to the basket. They're driving to the basket. They're getting open shots. Like the way that their offense
it's one of those that I like the process but the results, because they're still 24th in offensive rating, but the motion, the ball movement, all that stuff, you're right about that.
They're screening for each other. Like Randall's doing the stuff that we always credit Bam and like Draymond for doing, of like getting to the top of the key and like distributing or making the right play or driving the basket.
Threes with nothing but net. I'm just like, what?
Yeah, like he is. And again, it goes. We talked about this earlier. Of like, I think Randall's always been the kind of guy that uses that athleticism and bullies to the basket and goes full speed like a freight train. Where I think Tibbs has really slowed him down and really said, "Okay, take your time, be smart, and make the right play." And he's doing that, and you can see the progression here. I don't know if it's him getting older. I don't know if it's Tibbs. Maybe it's a combination of both. But he's really taken a step of like understanding the speed of the NBA and like where he fits in it. Where you can pick your spots. Like you don't have to go full speed every time and get an offensive foul. Like you can take your time, use your athleticism, use your mobility. Because I still think he is. I always thought he was a talented guy physically. It was just a thing of, dude, you don't need to bowl your way to the basket every time.
Yeah, the spin moves and all that. The spin move, the infamous spin move, everybody made fun of. On Twitter last year and stuff.
It was something where recently the story came out that once LeBron came to town, he told the Lakers, like, don't match, like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
And the Lakers were like, okay, cool, like, well, let's let you go. Which is, by the way, and I know I'm a Laker fan and a little bit of a homer, so, like, when I say this there's a little bit of bias here, but, like, man, the Lakers take care of players better than any other teams in the league. really, like, they just let him go because he asked them to.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's a trade asset. Like, that's something that you have control over. Like, you shouldn't be that willing to, like, if a player just asks. And obviously we would have wanted him back. But I think, like, him playing with LeBron could have been a really cool thing of, like, learning how to slow down, because I think they have similar styles of game of how they when they get to the basket and like going downhill. And LeBron was like that early on in his career of like, let's just drive to the basket and make a move and try to get there. Where Randall now is starting to figure that out, and I think he would have figured it out a little faster and probably a little more efficiently in playing with a player like LeBron. But at the same time, he's evolving in a way that I never expected him to. I never expected him to get it.
Yep.
And it's extremely surprising. Yeah, he's gotten it, and it's extremely surprising, and I'm happy to see it. I think the next step for them to be dangerous is RJ Barrett showing up every night, because I think Randall and Quigley have been their two constants and really, really strong.
Well, I was looking it up for RJ Barrett because I think he's been better as of late, and I looked it up. Basically after game 9, so from games 10 through 25, he's played every game this year. But he's shooting 41% from 3 on 3 attempts per game, so the attempts could be up a little bit. But after starting off shooting the ball not well from 3, he's been shooting consistently for a pretty good amount now, and that's some progress I like to see from Barrett, because I like Barrett's tools as a point guard, especially as a big, I don't know if he'll be a point guard ultimately, but he's like a big combo guard. He could pass a little bit, make basic reads. He is a big body, and I think the one thing that was always with me where I had my reservations about him was the jump shot. I know he works hard on it. I know Drew Hanlon's his trainer, who has produced a lot of good NBA players and a few that are all-stars and MVP candidates this year. But I like where RJ's progress is at. He still has his ups and downs. Emmanuel Quickley has become a revelation in New York. He has single-handedly brought back life into the New York Knicks fan base. Shooting a very rookie-esque 40%, but 38% from 3. He has a nice floater game. He's getting to the line 3 times a game, which is actually a really good sign for, rookie guards. That means he's getting into the paint a lot. He has a nice little floater game. He's just competent out there. He's a solid point of attack defender as well. Obviously, he still has a lot to go on that end, but he needs to be getting more minutes, I think. And, getting Derrick Rose and... Well, Austin Rivers hasn't really been playing, but getting Derrick Rose, I think, is a
Hey man,
it's a Tibbs move. I get it.
You gotta find someone in your life that loves you
as much as Tibbs loves Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler. Butler. Both of those guys. It's like,
so here, I do want to bring this up before we move off of RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett, so the last 10 games, right? Just looking at shooting percentage or field goal percentage. So last 10 games, so starting on February 7th and going down, it's 16%, 36%, 23%, 25%, 57%, 45%, 50%, 11%, 62%, 47%, and 61%. So that's kind of the thing where I mean, like, there's a lot of
wild
really good in there,
lately.
and then there's a lot of like, what is going on with you today?
Yeah.
And it's not like he's taking a low number of attempts. He's still even in the bad shooting games, he's still taking like 10, 15 shots a game. And it's like, okay, we need for me, because I still view Barrett as a potential like superstar guy. Like, I still think he has the tools to do that, and I think like
you think he'll be a superstar type guy?
I think he can be the guy in the same way like Jimmy Butler started slow and then became the guy. I still think he can be that kind of player,
like a late bloomer.
Yeah. So like I see a lot of parallels between him and Jimmy Butler in terms of how their careers are going. And again, I don't know if he'll ever get there.
Yeah.
But his tools are, I love the tools that he has. I think he still has a great first step. I think he still has good form. I think he has he has a perfect body type and strength to the basket for a guard. Like, I love what he has to work with, but it's a matter of, does he get there? And like, this kind of stuff is concerning for a player of like, when my expectations are that, this is concerning still. But again, he's still really young. He's only his second year. But yeah, I think if he can take that next step, because when he's good, when he is efficient and he is playing well, the Knicks are really hard to beat. When him,
just imagine saying that.
I know, which is insane to think about. When you watch, I don't know how many Knicks games you watched this year.
I've watched quite a bit of Knicks games, my friend.
I watched a good
the
handful,
18 and 17 New York Knicks are the fourth seed in the Eastern Conference right now.
So it's so fascinating because the thing is, like, Randall's consistent. Randall is a consistent 10 and 8 guy.
He's gonna make an All NBA team this year.
Yeah, which is crazy to think about. But so to me, yeah, he's the consistent. Quigley's been pretty consistent. To me, the X factor has been RJ Barrett, where when they're winning games, he's typically on.
Yeah.
When they're struggling to stay in games or close games, like, he's kind of having an off game. Where every game I see where he's having a solid game, he's performing really well, the Knicks are winning by like double digits.
Yep. Yeah, and that's where I think that's why you see why the Knicks are still like 24th or 23rd in offensive efficiency. A lot of players that make the offense, get going. They're still young players, still trying to learn how to be consistent. It's really fun to see. It's a shame also that, most of the season has been played without fans because Knicks fans are throwing a party, down Broad Street, just basically celebrating this season because they finally have a point guard they like. They finally have a star player. Julius Randle, let's just say he's been playing like a star player this year. Like he's an all-star. Yeah. He's averaging, 23, 11, and 5, over 5.5 assists a game on very high efficiency, a 58.9 true shooting percentage and 42% from 3. Like I said a few minutes ago, he's going to make an All-NBA team. And if the Knicks stay up this high, it would be well-deserved. I think even if wherever the Knicks finish in the top 8, I think Julius Randle, if he continues this play to close out the year, he's got to make an All-NBA team. The young and scrappy Knicks. Who would have thought?
Yeah, who would have thought? It's such a weird concept of... Man, remember we were talking earlier in the season? Or even preseason, we were talking about, like, what the fuck are the Knicks doing?
Yeah.
I do want to talk about what the fuck is this team doing with the Pistons? Because there's rumors that they do want to trade for Spencer Dinwiddie. The fuck are they doing?
Were there rumors they wanted to trade for Spencer Dinwiddie?
I think I've seen a lot of talk that they're looking to trade for Spencer Dinwiddie. I could be mistaken. I could have seen a bad
I haven't
headline.
seen anything. I think the Pistons shouldn't be doing anything, really.
Well, that was my point. I was like,
I
don't know why they're trying to trade. They should trade for draft picks, if anything.
They shouldn't be buyers. They should be sellers. Like, the team stinks. I think
they were trying to. I think the thing I saw was that they were inquiring. The Nets were inquiring about some of the bigs that they have, because we were talking about earlier how they were inquiring how they stacked bigs for this stock market. We talked about that in the beginning of the season.
They have diamond hands.
So they do. They have diamond hands. It's paying off. But yeah, they were talking about that, and apparently Spencer Dinwiddie came up as like compensation for the centers.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why would you take back Spencer Dinwiddie with these assets that you?
Well, it would depend on the trade package too, or what aside from Dinwiddie are the Pistons getting, because
like
Dinwiddie's hurt too, so that wouldn't make sense to me if they just got Dinwiddie back and they traded. That'd be malpractice. I'd be pissed if I was a Pistons fan. I'd be like, we better get some fucking draft picks with that. Like,
that's what I was saying. Like, I just don't understand. Like, if Spencer Dinwiddie is the core of the package that you're getting back, like, I don't understand what you're doing.
Yeah, and
then you're just throwing at that point. Like,
yeah, they should absolutely be sellers. Blake Griffin's washed. I could tell you as somebody who has him on fantasy. The Pistons had this weird thing earlier in the year where they were in a lot of close games. They were like 2-12 in close games, and they eked out a few against the Suns and the Celtics earlier in the year and stuff like that. But I think they have now fallen back down to earth. They They're basically the worst team in the league, aside from no, they're the second worst team in the league. I was like, who had the worst record, the Timberwolves or the Pistons? Then I remember the Timberwolves had 7 wins and have 28 losses, but the Pistons are right on their heels. Man. But yeah, they're not good. Yeah, fade for Cade. Shout out to Nick Agar Johnson, who came up with that term that I will use forever.
God. Okay, more interesting question. If you're Cade, do you want to go to Detroit or Minnesota?
Rather go back to Oklahoma State. No, I guess I would. I guess if I had to choose, damn. If I had to choose, I'd probably go to Minnesota. I think actually that answer's a little bit easier than what I'm letting on. Just because you still have Karl Anthony Towns, you still have Anthony Edwards. Who knows about the coaching situation and all that stuff? I'm sure. Oh wow, Doug McDermott lost a tooth. Anyway, I think just in terms of fun factor and theoretically speaking, I would like to see Cade on the Timberwolves. I would actually like to see.
It would be really fun to watch. He could be the Tyrese Halliburton connecting piece between all this stuff to make this work. He would be an incredible connecting piece.
I saw a good tweet about this, but I hope whoever drafts Cade doesn't try to turn him into like a point guard. To me, you need to make him an off guard. He's a wing. Like he's just a all around do it all wing. Like he can pass, but he can also score. He could shoot off the dribble. Like he makes winning plays. He makes off ball plays, off ball defensive plays. Like just make him a wing.
So after
easy answer.
Obviously, I knew about him before. We talked about this before the season about how I loved Cade Cunningham.
Yep.
And as we've now seen him more and more over the course of this year, and then you've gotten to know him more and more as a player, it makes me really sad now that we probably won't get a LaMelo Cade backcourt.
Because LaMelo is so good already.
Yeah. And they're probably going to make the playoffs.
The Hornets are the 8th seed, dude.
Yeah.
They're the 8th seed. Like, they would obviously be in the play-in part of the playoffs, but, like, I did not expect I'm looking at my tier rankings right now, right, that we did before the season started. One,
yeah.
The Knicks are all the way in tier 5. Will watch no more than 10 games, ... probably, is what I have the tier titled. And I have definitely watched more than 10 Knicks games this year.
Yeah.
And the Hornets I had in tier 4, which is those extra fries you find at the bottom of the bag. And we joked how it was now that it's like the curly fry you find in the middle of regular fries. Now the Hornets are just straight up good curly fries. They're fun.
Yeah.
They're fun. They have a lot of fun pieces. Gordon Hayward is having a year that's similar to his last season in Utah and why the Celtics signed him to that contract originally. And Terry Rozier is shooting 45% from 3, averaging 20 points a game. LaMelo's finally starting. Like, it's really crazy. I did not expect LaMelo to be this good this soon. I always thought his combination of passing and size is just something where it always baffled me when people questioned how good he would be. Because to me, he has 2 things you would want already in a guard ready to go. Elite size and elite playmaking.
I didn't expect the shooting.
Yeah, the shooting is what has surprised me. So he's shooting 35% from 3, right? But in his last 13 games that he started, he's shooting 40% from 3 on nearly 7 attempts per game. He's averaging 26 and almost 7 assists and almost 2 steals a game. He's using his IQ to play the passing lanes well. He's going to get bullied by people who weigh more than 150 pounds, but he'll fill out as his career goes along. I did not expect him to be this good this soon. And if he was starting, excuse me, and if he was starting from the beginning and he was putting up these numbers, he would be an all-star in the East.
Yeah.
Like, now it's at the point where it's like, to me, like, he's the clear rookie of the year. I think Halliburton is also in his own tier, but it's a tier that's below LaMelo. LaMelo is
the thing with LaMelo, and it's so interesting now that he's starting, and it's happened the last like maybe 5 games, and I don't know how much you've watched him recently, but it's starting to get to the point where like
he's definitely watched the Sac game last night in the Suns game recently.
He's starting to feel himself. And it's getting terrifying because at the beginning of the season, and even when he first starting, he was deferring quite a bit, and he was playing like a rookie. Like you could tell, like he's good, but you could tell that he's still trying to find his way, trying to find his place.
James Borrego was like, you can't not play defense and turn the ball over as much as LaMelo has. Yeah.
Now he's starting to feel himself. He starts to know where he is. And the last 5 games, his confidence has like skyrocketed.
Yep.
And you can really see it where he's taking these step back threes of like, yeah, okay, you're going to back off. Cool. I'm going to take the step back 3, and he's draining it. And it's a thing where if he's draining that step back 3, I honestly don't know how you guard him.
Yeah, because
he's so big, he's so crafty around the basket that you have to play off because you can't give him that first step. But
he's so crafty with his handle that he could get at any spot on the floor, and he doesn't really need a first step or anything. He just gets there.
And then the thing is, like on top of that, he has the passing, so you can't double because he's just going to find the open man.
Yep.
And then you get stuck in rotation, and then if he's hitting this 3, I don't know. Like he has you in such a bind. Where it's like watching Luka, but he's obviously not as strong as Luka, and Luka's a little more consistent. But the thing is, like, LaMelo has that craftiness to get to the basket. He doesn't have like the speed, but he has the size and he has the passing ability.
Yeah,
and he's shooting at a better clip than Luka is right now from 3, and it's just opening up all of these different avenues that it's like. I don't know how you stop him, and then especially when Rozier is this hot and Gordon Hayward's this hot, like you can't. And
Malik Monk is finding himself too. By the way, how about Malik Monk? Like I was someone who was high on both Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox.
I never gave up on Malik Monk, man. I always thought he was like instant offense. I thought he could be like. I thought he could be the next like Lou Williams off the bench. And I was
he's shooting 44% from 3 on over 5 attempts per game. He's coming in off the bench, and basically he's doing what Devontae Graham was doing last year, coming off the bench. But dude, LaMelo, did you see the pass LaMelo did last night against the Kings, where he was in transition and he went up, looked at the rim, and looked like he was going to lay it up with his left hand, but then he did a sleight of hand, still had his head looking at the rim like he was going to do a layup, and then he dropped it off to Bismack Biyombo for a dunk. Like LaMelo is just such a heady player, and he could see 2 steps ahead, and it's really just been fun to watch. I'm glad we got another good point guard in. I remember your podcast question last week where you mistakenly asked if LaMelo was a top 10 player, and I almost had a heart attack. But but I realized you were saying top 10 point guard. And we were saying like, he actually. We were going down the list. We were like, he actually might be, but he's been playing like one, man. Like the Hornets are in the playoffs, and LaMelo's playmaking and offensive ability has been a big reason why. And I know we talk about LaMelo all the time, but he's such a fascinating rookie because, like,
it really is.
Lonzo Ball has been on fire after a slow start to the season again, but we kind of knew he would start bouncing back. Now he's become an above-average starting guard. LaMelo is looking like he's going to be a superstar point guard for a long time. I think of LaMelo and Ja Morant in like the same category, like young point guards that I know, especially after watching them after their rookie year. Like, because I felt this with Ja last year. I was like, I see like 4 special things a game that he does. Yeah. And he's competitive, and he has that he has that gamer, I guess, if you want to use a cliche term. Like, there's a give a shitness in close games that you're just like, okay, Ja is not scared at the moment. And LaMelo Ball is like one of the most confident rookies I have ever seen.
He had that last night. He had that last night when they were down to the Kings.
Yeah.
And he was like, he just drove his team down the court every time and like got good shots and brought them back. is
Yeah.
impressive from a rookie. The thing I will say though is like, and we talked about this the other night when we were talking about trading cards. So full disclosure, I'm a big card collector, so I sent in a whole bunch of 2019 Prism rookies. So the top rookie cards, I sent them in to PSA to get graded. I got them all back, and so we were talking about that a little bit. And I was saying I don't trust Ja Morant or Zion in terms of like investment opportunities because they're just going to get hurt.
Yeah.
They just like Ja has that D Rose herky jerkiness that like just scares me every time I watch them play.
Mm-hmm.
And so over longevity, I would actually trust LaMelo more, just because I think like he just has the body and he has the gameplay or the game plan where it's like, yeah, I'm just going to play my speed.
Ja Morant lands in a way that reminds me of young Derrick Rose. It's kind of scary.
Yeah,
it's like straight leg kind of. Last year, there was a game against the Rockets where he fell down and bent backwards, and I thought he tore his knee up. Like I thought Ja was done, and I think it was after a putback dunk, but he basically landed near a bunch of Rockets players, and he didn't bend his knees or anything. It was basically he straight leg falling down and letting all your legs get the impact, and he almost looked like he tore up his knee, and I almost had a heart attack just watching that. And yeah, you're right. In terms of volatility, with Zion, the more I see him, well, maybe it's because he's so freaking jarring to watch that I forget about my health concerns with him. But like the longevity part of your case for LaMelo, it makes sense because Zion still kind of scares me. And then, yeah, Ja Morant's, landing. I wish somebody in the Grizzlies organization needs to teach him how to land properly, please.
Yeah, it's pretty terrifying, and like, yeah, it comes to the thing too of like, man, how many times has Ja almost postered someone?
Yep.
And it's like every time I watch him try to do it, he does it, and it just looks so violent. And then he lands, and you're like, oh, dude, don't stop trying to yam on people, dude. It looks like you're gonna hurt yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and and that's but see, at the same time, it's a double-edged sword. That's the thing I love about Ja so much.
Yeah,
is that
it's the same thing I love about Russ too, right? Like,
yeah,
Russ
it's like gives up. He's so fearless. Like if he had gotten that dunk off on Kevin Love last year,
yeah,
I don't know what I would have done.
I thought right away.
Like I would have ran out the apartment. I would have ran down the street. Like I don't know what I would have done. But Ja Morant just tries daring shit, and I love that about him. Just gotta hope Jaren Jackson stays healthy for once in his life. And, the Grizzlies have young talent everywhere. Justice Winslow is back. My guy, Lefty Gang, Justice Winslow's season. I hope to God he can stay healthy. Yeah, Brandon Clark, Xavier Tillman, Desmond Bane. Oh, by the way, surprise, surprise, Desmond Bane, a 6'8" wing who can shoot. Surprise, surprise, translates to the NBA. I don't know why every time like a player like Desmond Bane falls, everyone's like, oh, wow. Like, I'm so shocked that he's doing this good as a second rounder. I was like, I wanted the Sixers to take Desmond Bane as he was falling. I was like, oh, God. Yeah. Like, if he falls to the early 30s, I want the Sixers to get him. And they didn't get him. A bunch of teams passed up on him. And now everybody has the Pikachu meme shocked face when Desmond Bane, a guy who was a awesome three-point shooter in college and could defend multiple positions because of his size, is surprise, surprise, doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's
Did I mention Xavier Tillman too, by the way, on the Grizzlies? Okay.
We need to make these shirts. These long boy shirts. Because I feel like we need to spread the gospel of the long boy.
I might let you take the charge on that one. But yeah,
I just want a shirt that says "Long Boy," and everyone's gonna be like, "What the fuck?"
Everyone's gonna be like, "What the hell is this?" You're just gonna be like, "Hey, man, you just gotta know the gospel of the Long Boy." No, for real though. Like, I don't know why we were shocked with Desmond Bane. There's a few others. Like, this draft is really fun. By the way, this rookie class, like, I think everybody was shocked at how good it was already, but I think it's only good because we all knew they were going to be high-level role players or guys who were going to play a role immediately in the NBA based on their skill sets, right? Like we said, this was the draft for role players and, star role players even, and it's bearing out that way. I mean, Patrick Williams, Peyton Pritchard in Boston. Obviously LaMelo is the key gem in that class. There's a few gems in there that have the potential to, supersede the entire class, like James Wiseman, even though I want him to somehow develop better hands. But I mean, LaMelo, I still don't know what Anthony Edwards is, but I believe in that kid's work ethic and his attitude. He's one of my favorite personalities already in the NBA.
Absolutely.
He just seems like a really joyful, solid dude, and I never really bought into the stuff about his love for the game or whatever. I just think teenagers are different now. They have different interests, and sometimes you don't have to watch a sport religiously to play a sport that you love. He never said he didn't watch basketball. He just, he just didn't like watching basketball like that, I guess. I don't know. Like, it seemed like his pre-draft stuff, like always, is a little muddled, but like I like this rookie class, man.
I think it's clear at this point that LaMelo's clearly tanked his first interviews. He
clearly did. Clearly,
he wanted to go to the Hornets, and like he clearly tanked these interviews.
Yeah. Could you imagine the Warriors with LaMelo?
That'd be so much fun to watch.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, the Warriors are a league pass team because of Steph alone, but LaMelo on the Warriors would have been. Oh man.
Could you imagine LaMelo on the Warriors next year with Steph and Clay?
I know.
Just give LaMelo the ball and let Steph and Clay run around and fucking.
And LaMelo and Draymond can just spray people with passes. LaMelo can even cut.
Goodness.
LaMelo could cut, and Draymond will. Imagine LaMelo cutting baseline and Draymond doing a bounce pass down the middle, like a high-low pass, and then LaMelo gets cut off, and then he does a pass to Steph in the corner, shit like that, dude. That would have been basketball nirvana. Yeah,
it would have been pretty insane, and I'm curious if anyone in the Warriors organization is kicking themselves. Probably not, because I still do like Wiseman a lot.
Me too. I still like Wiseman.
But yeah,
I'm just not sure if his
something different.
His hands,
a
lot of skills. There are skills that are tough to develop, but there are examples of where they do develop that type of skill. I think passing is something you get better at, but unless you're a natural reader, there's a ceiling cap on how good you could be as a passer. But I think Karl Anthony Towns is breaking that mold, because I think he's made some advanced reads the last few years that I'm he never made that before.
This is the consistency with him, but he sees them.
Yeah, and there's just feel stuff that is rarely tough to improve on within certain skills, right? But there are examples of them, and I hope Wiseman can develop better hands, because hands are something that has had a spotty track record in terms of improvement. And, you see Wiseman all the time botching dunks, duck-ins, all that. We talked
about it before where, he'll get the ball in positions where I'm dude, this is an easy layup or an easy dunk, and he'll just, fumble it, and you're oh, okay, well, there goes that chance.
Or the thing where he'll go up with it and the ball flies out of his hands.
Yeah.
And shit like that.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, it's the Dwight Howard hands.
Don't do that. I have never seen good/bad hands at the same time. You've seen it. Dwight will go up, snag an offensive rebound one-handed, and you're oh yeah, just go back up and dunk it. And he'll go back up, and he'll either lose the ball, or he'll miss the dunk, or he'll brick the backboard, and no one will touch him. Or he'll get fouled and not finish the easy and one, or he'll go up for a lob, fumble it, or, of course, he's starting to feel himself a little bit on this team, and whenever I just want Doc to tell Dwight, no dribble handoffs for you. Do not dribble the ball one time. I don't want him anywhere near any offensive initiation type of role. But then Dwight will just fumble it. Yeah,
it's so interesting to think the video I brought back up, and I posted this, and I think I tagged you in it too, of talking about the post, and it was Shaq and Chuck doing kind of a lesson on how to post up. And something that I noticed during the Cavs or during the Mavericks game.
The Mavericks and Nets game.
Yeah, because did you watch that game?
I watched a lot. I watched a lot of the first half.
The first half, they were doing a great job punishing the Nets down low and just posting up Kristaps, which is something that I thought they should have been doing. I brought this up before. They should have been doing from the previous game they played them, where it's like, yeah, Kristaps, you have Jeff Green on you.
Yeah,
you have like a 1.5 foot advantage, dude. Just go in there and post up. The problem was that he was catching it so far out that he couldn't back down, or he couldn't have the space to back down, and then he was taking these fadeaway jumpers, which is like, okay, that's not the shot you want. The idea of it is correct, but like this isn't the correct shot. Like you want it closer. And I was like, dude, Chris, if you just take a step in and then post up, like you could get to the basket so easy.
He was getting in on duck-ins and stuff like that, which was pretty nice. I still go.
It's something that you see from like good post-up players, like Jokic does it, and even like Marc Gasol and AD do it, where like they get Embiid, they all post up correctly, where they get it as deep as possible. Like you want to, the thing that Shaq and Chuck both point out, and it's something that's super true, and it's something that they teach kids. I learned this as a kid, and you probably did too as a post player. You get deeper than you want to be, and then when they push you out, then you're right where you need to be.
Yeah.
When you watch Kristaps post, and even Dwight and all these other guys post, they post where they want to be, and then when they get pushed out, they're like almost at the 3-point line, and you're like, you're catching it almost at the 3-point line. You're like, dude, you need to post deeper, and then you get pushed out, and then you catch it on the block.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, that's not. It's sort of like a boomer statement here, but it's like the lost art of the post, where it's like people forget how to post.
I know we talked about it last week, and I do think sometimes the Mavs could do good taking advantage of Kristaps' size, but to me it's also, if you're not a good post player, like I don't want to run post-ups through you. Like what the Mavericks did, I thought was really smart. They got Kristaps more on duck-ins, where it's easy to establish your position so you get a quick catching finish. I think posting up in the half court, which is what we were talking about, Shaq and Chuck, they end up at the right destination but take 50 wrong turns before they get there. I think they want Kristaps to post up more in the half court, and I don't want Kristaps as a half court post up player. And if I do,
I want him there.
I want him there to shoot over the top. Like that's the one.
That's all I want from him.
That's all I want.
I don't want him to make a move. I want him to post up and turn and fire.
Yeah, and that's what I want.
But the thing is, like, he's turning and firing like mid range, where I want him turn and fire like a hook in the post. Because you can get your shot. Like,
I don't think he has the skills for a hook shot. I would say
not even a hook, just like a little lane. He has 1.5 foot on Jeff Green. Like, dude, if you just turn, if you catch it correctly on the post and turn, it's right there.
Yeah.
Or like he's catching it and making it a little more difficult of shot. He's a talented player, so he can hit this fadeaway mid-range jumper, but it's not ideal when you have 1.5 foot over Jeff Green.
Yeah. But I also think, again, it's hard for him to establish post position or carve out real estate, because he is 7'3" and 6 feet of it is legs, like I would mention last pod. So that's why I would say, like, I wouldn't even mind him shooting fadeaways like Dirk. Like, I think he has the shot mechanics to do it. But I still like him as a pop out guy. And that opens up a lot of things offensively that way. I think he's also starting to play better, just because, like we were saying at the beginning of the season, we knew Kristaps was going to be out for a while. It was just when is he going to come back, and how long is it going to take for the rest to fall off? He still does. I don't think he's ever going to be the same athletic-wise and mobility-wise that he was in New York. But he still has a skill set where he could pop out. He's a big that pops out to three, that lifts the big out of the paint, and I think that provides value. I just don't know if I'd be running post-ups for him all the time like everybody clamors for him to do. I think there are moments. There are definitely things you should... I'm all about improvising.
I don't want him to post up every game, and I don't think that should be their main form of attack. Mm-hmm. But my thing is, when you have Jeff Green on you, you got to post him up.
Yeah. Of course. But it's weird, because I still don't like the discourse when Shaq and Chuck talk about Embiid, because now, like, Embiid is posting up a bit more and he's getting to the line more and stuff. But to me, like, his shot profile one, it's way efficient, but it's also the same relatively. But they're like, oh, he's posted up more, and he finally figured out that he was 7'2" and bigger than everybody else. But when you really look at Embiid's game, yeah, he's a dominant post player, but what's really lifted his game this year is his and I can't believe I'm saying this because he's a 7'2", 280-pound player. His dribble pull-up game has been elite this year. Like, he's a 3-level scorer, man, and it's like he's not dominating just because he's a dominant post-up player. He's dominating because he's shooting Dirk-like percentages from mid-range, and he has a fucking hezzy pull-up. A hezzy pull-up at the free throw line. Like, it's ridiculous. And so, like, I still don't like the Discord sometimes when Shaq and Chuck talk about, or when they yearn for their yesteryear, or their centers of yesteryear and stuff like that. But, you know, they have their opinions just like we all have ours. But Kristaps as a post player, yeah, let's do it once in a while, but not all the time. That's all.
Yeah. I think we're in agreement. My thing was just like, Kristaps, I need you to post up deeper.
Jeff Green.
You have Jeff Green.
Jeff Green. Yeah,
it was
exactly.
It was so frustrating to watch because it was a thing of like, when you're that much bigger, you can't settle for this turnaround fade from the mid.
The Mavericks used him in a very smart and correct way that I would have. Yeah, that the way they used him in the first half was great. And also, shout out to the Mavs for winning that night because the Sixers suffered a bad loss to the Cavs.
Yeah.
And we needed them to lose so they could stay behind in the East standings.
Yeah, again, I'm very impressed with how the Mavs played that game, but yeah, they earned that win. Obviously, no KD, no Kyrie, but they still earned that win, and they pretty much dominated from tip. So very excited to see, especially with how their season's gone. I'm very excited to see that they were able to do that.
Yep, we'll find out in the after the All-Star break and see if the Mavs will.
Oh God.
Yeah, but
yeah,
I think we should. I think that's I think that's about all I have today. What about you? Do you have anything you wanted to add before we dip?
Yeah, no, I think I'm good. We have All-Star game coming up this week, and we'll probably talk about that a little bit next week.
My God.
Yeah, and so we have All-Star weekend coming up. I'm still praying that we get LaMelo skills contest and Zion in the dunk contest. Those would be the dreams for me.
Yeah. Yep.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, we'll probably talk next week. We'll probably talk about the All-Star game, and I also do want to do a update on our tier list for next week too.
Yeah, I've got to update my tier list now.
Yeah, so we'll do post All-Star break updated tier lists next week.
Yeah, for sure. Do you want to do East or West first? Because I feel like this would be a 2-parter episode.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We'll figure it out. But
we'll figure it out.
Surprise. We'll keep a surprise for the audience.
Yeah, stay tuned. That's what we call in the radio biz a tease.
All right, and just remember, guys, it's not how hard you come, or it's not when you come. It's how hard you come. Thanks for listening. We hope you guys enjoyed.
The B.O.B.